my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Libby and I am filming a much requested video today all about the SQE1. So I have just passed the SQE1 and I thought I would share my whole process and also some background about the SQE1. I put a question box on my story over on Instagram and I had so many questions over there. I always get loads of messages about the SQE, so I thought I would answer some of them in this video. So the SQE has been introduced by the SRA to become the new route to becoming a solicitor in England and Wales, and the SQE1 is the first part, the SQE2 is the second part, but we're going to be talking about the SQE1 today because that is what I've just done. The SQE1 is assessed by 2 5-hour exams. FLK1 is in the first exam and FLK2 is in the second exam. So there's different topic areas in the 2 exams. The 5-hour exams are split up. So we went into a test centre and we did 2.5 hours, then we got let out and had a lunch break, and then we did another 2.5 hours after that. So you obviously can't access the questions that you did in the previous 2.5 hours. So it's not 5 hours all the way through. You have a lunch break in the middle. The topics in FLK1 are business law and practice, dispute resolution, contract, tort, legal system of England and Wales, constitutional and administrative law, and EU law and legal services. And then in FLK2, so the second exam, there was property practice, wills and administration of estates, solicitors' accounts, land law, trusts, and criminal law and practice. And then ethics and professional conduct are pervasive, so they're assessed throughout. And both of those exams have to be passed before you can move on to the next stage to becoming a solicitor. So if you're researching it, you've probably seen a lot online about different prep courses that you can do. You can also self-study, you don't have to do a prep course, but I was on a prep course with BPP Law School. It's called the CCP programme, so the City Consortium Plus programme is what I've been put on, and it's been designed by a group of firms for their future trainees to go through. So everyone that I have my classes with are all future trainees at these firms. So the course has been put together by them, and the firms are Freshfields, Herbert Smith Freehills, Hogan Lovells, Linklaters, Norton Rose Fulbright, and Slaughter and May. So yeah, all of the people I'm studying alongside are future trainees from one of those firms. I believe that all of us studying in this course in the CCP programme have done a law degree, or we've done the GDL, which is the graduate diploma in law, I believe, which is the law conversion, for a year. So this means that we've all studied the core topics which are assessed in the SQE, but we didn't have classes for them because we have all studied them already. So that was contract, tort, land, trusts, constitutional and administrative law, and criminal. And we were given PowerPoints to self-study this. So obviously, because I did a law degree, I've actually not studied like criminal contract law since my first year. So it was a good couple of years ago that I had studied it, and obviously because I was studying during the pandemic, I never had to actually commit any of it to memory, so we had to refresh our own knowledge on those things that we'd already covered in a law degree or the GDL. And then for the remaining topics that we'd never studied before, we had classes for those, we had set reading for those and set tasks to do every week. So we'd have 1 2-hour workshop for each class every week, and we'd have reading to do for those. So a typical week would look like a class for business law and practice, a class for property law and practice, a class for dispute resolution, a class for criminal law and practice, and a class for wills and the administration of estates. And we were supposed to be refreshing our underlying knowledge that we covered in the GDL or our undergrad throughout that, which I didn't actually do. I did it all at the end, but I will come on to that later. So the SQE1 is designed to be more accessible and flexible and cheaper than the LPC, which was the old route to qualification. So it says on the All About Law website that it's £3,980 compared to the £10,000 plus required for the GDL and LPC previously. So the 3,980 figure is for the exams that you have to pay for, so that is the cost of solely the exams. I did also look into whether you can self-study and who they would advise that's for. From studying it myself, I can't imagine that it would be very easy to self-study without at least purchasing some of the guided materials from a provider or doing a prep course, because the specification from the SRA isn't hugely specific, and I think it would be quite hard without guidance to know what you're looking for. So I think you're going to have to at least purchase some prep materials. And yeah, I think it's likely that most people will need to do a prep course for this, but obviously that's something that you need to look into or research yourself. Regarding my method of studying, I relied solely on the materials that they gave to us. So we were given PowerPoints and we were told exactly what PowerPoints to read through for each class, and I would do that set reading. And when I was doing it, I would copy and paste all of those notes from the PowerPoint, put them into a Word document for that topic, and obviously just format them, and then as I was going I would make flashcards from them. And this was from the beginning of the course, this was from when I first started, because I knew that we were going to have to commit all of this stuff to memory, and it was a huge volume of material that we had to commit to memory, and this meant that I was saving time at the end. I actually don't know how I would have done it if I didn't make flashcards throughout the process, because then all I had to do at the end was review all of the flashcards, and I had thousands of flashcards to review. So I definitely would do that again. I would recommend that if flashcards are a good way for you to learn. Obviously it's active recall, and I would highly recommend, if you're going to do flashcards, to do them throughout the course if you're doing a course, or do them very early on as soon as you start working, because there's just a huge amount of content to get through. And also the fact that I copy and pasted all of the PowerPoint notes into my own notes meant that I had more comprehensive notes that I could go back to if the flashcards weren't specific enough. And also we had internal BPP exams that we had to pass as well, but they were open book, so I could Command F in those notes when we were doing that exam. So that was obviously very helpful for me and my situation. I used Quizlet to make my flashcards. I did used to use Anki when I was at university, but I chose to use Quizlet because I found them a little bit more user-friendly, and just you could see the whole list of the flashcards, so I could Command F in them and find things a little easier than with Anki. But the only thing that I would do differently in terms of using Quizlet is split up the decks as I went, because I had some decks that had like 800 to 1,000 flashcards in one deck. That was just too much for me to go through the entire deck and then try and retain any of that information and go through the whole deck again at a later date. So I ended up splitting those decks into decks of around 200 to 300 cards, and if I were to do it again I would just make decks of 200 to 300 and then make a second deck, so Dispute Resolution 1 and then Dispute Resolution 2 when the first deck was full. A quick word from today's sponsor. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. You guys know that I have built my website on Squarespace. It's so user-friendly, it's so easy to use. They have loads of templates that you can choose from. I built a website with Squarespace to sell my ebooks, and you can also link your social media accounts, and you can have commenting and blogging features to connect with your audience. You can also create mailing lists, stand out with a beautiful website, and sell anything from products, services, content, your time. All round great way to grow your brand or your business. So you can check out squarespace.com for your free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use my link at squarespace.com/libertymiles for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So for the underlying knowledge, so the topics that we learnt in our undergrad law degree or in the GDL, I ended up not doing it throughout the course and not making flashcards throughout the course, which was what was recommended to us. But I found the workload sort of fairly heavy and just saved that problem for a later date, and I ended up just making all of those FLK flashcards, so contract, tort, criminal, land and equity. I did them all in a week before our BPP internal exams. I just had a really intense week of going through all of the content that they provided. For that, I didn't go back to my undergrad notes unless I didn't understand a concept, because my undergrad notes were a lot more detailed than the resources provided to us, so we didn't need to know necessarily all of the stuff I learnt in undergrad. So I just made flashcards from the PowerPoints again provided to us for the FLK, and I did that all in a fairly intense week before the BPP exams. And yes, that was a week before Christmas, before our internal exams, that I did that, and that was completely fine. And then when it came to revision, I basically just started reviewing all my flashcards. I think I took about 2 weeks off for Christmas, fully off, didn't do anything. I think that was really good for me in terms of not getting burnt out, but that meant that I started full-time revision from the beginning of January, and our exams I think were on the 28th and 30th of January. To revise, I literally just started going through my flashcard decks. I would go through the entirety of a flashcard deck, and then I would record the date that I had done that in a table. So I made a table for spaced repetition so I could see when I'd last reviewed a deck and then see when I next needed to review it based on the principles of spaced repetition. And I think I ended up reviewing each deck around 4 to 5 times prior to the exam, and that did work for me. I studied all of the topics at once. I didn't have any particular order of studying the topics, but when it came to a few days before the FLK1 exam, I started focusing solely on the FLK1 topics, and then obviously after that I focused solely on the FLK2 subjects before that exam. And then in the days leading up to my exams, I did a few past papers. I did the papers provided by the SRA, but the questions are quite easy. And then when it came to a couple of days before the exams, I did the mocks provided by our university. So we had one full mock for FLK1 and FLK2, and we were also provided smaller exams for the specific topics that we had learned as well. So I did all of those, and then I did the OUP mock and the QTLS mock, both of which are free and you can find online. I think I found the QTLS and the OUP ones both pretty helpful. In terms of things I would have done differently, I think I would have just started reviewing my flashcards a bit earlier. So before Christmas I would have dedicated a little bit more time to reviewing my flashcards a bit sooner, and then I also think I would potentially have done the mock exams a bit sooner. I think personally I've always felt like I have to wait until I know everything to do mock exams, but I think it would have actually been beneficial to do the mock exams before I knew everything, or like before I'd committed absolutely everything to memory. Because it definitely did help me remember stuff, especially when new things came up that we hadn't learned. I remembered them really easily and really quickly from doing the mock exams, and then if you do them again, you're definitely gonna remember them. So yes, I think I would just start a little bit earlier for both of those, but I mean, I did pass comfortably. I was in the top quintile for both of my exam results, so I don't really need to have changed anything. But before I had my results, those are the things that I think would have made my life a little bit easier, would have made me feel a bit more confident for the exams. I had a question about if it was similar or how much harder it was than my undergrad. So I have said on my Instagram and YouTube that they were the hardest exams that I've done, and I do definitely stand by that. They were the hardest exams I've done, especially because I've only ever done 24-hour online exams for my undergrad, and it's mainly because of the absolute sheer volume of content that we had to commit to memory. But I would say it was kind of similar to my undergrad in terms of workload, just quite different. I would be working a 9 till 5 pretty broadly, Monday to Friday, and obviously a little bit more, it was a little bit more intense in the lead up to exams. The exams were difficult because there was a huge amount of content you had to remember. Some of it was quite niche and some of the questions were quite trickily worded. But yeah, I definitely had plenty of time to socialise and see friends and do other things, and I organised myself how I always do, how I've always done. So I had weekly to-do lists, daily to-do lists, time blocking where necessary, and just my set working hours and sticking to that. So all of the usual good stuff. And then in terms of working part-time and finances, I've had a couple of questions about that. I was given a grant by my firm to live off of. We were given a lump sum and they paid for all of my fees and they paid for my exams as well. I didn't have a traditional part-time job, but I am lucky enough to earn money from YouTube, so I was technically working on social media and earning from that. But I would say it's definitely possible to have a part-time job. It's just a matter of managing your time well. From a financial perspective, I think I probably would have had a part-time job if I wasn't working on YouTube, but it's definitely possible. I mean, I do dedicate a fair amount of hours a week to social media and other commitments, so it's definitely possible. So I think that's everything I'm going to cover today. I hope that that has covered the things you guys wanted to know. Let me know if you want me to do a Q&A about the SQE1. Let me know if you have any other questions, if there's any other more specific videos you want me to do about the SQE1. I will be starting the SQE2 soon as well, so I'll do some more content relating to that. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video as well. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.